It was Morvan Ven's 22nd birthday, and the only gift she'd received was a barrel to the ribs and Gorn's spit-flecked screaming. "Move faster, girl!" The tavern owner's meaty hand slammed on the bar. "Table 6 needs refills. Stop standing there like a decoration." Morvan grabbed the tray, her bruised ribs protesting. "Yes, sir. Right away." She wasn't standing. She was barely breathing. Greyfall Outpost Tavern was a nightmare dressed in torchlight and ale. For anyone else, it was just rowdy. For Morvan, it was suffocation. Because Morvan Ven had a secret she'd spent her entire life hiding. She didn't just see people. She felt them. Every handshake was an invasion. Every brush of skin was a tidal wave of someone else's rage, lust, grief, greed. She'd always thought it was intuition, a talent for reading faces. But it wasn't reading. It was drowning. Tonight the tavern was packed with mercenaries fresh from the border wars. Their emotions crashed into her like fists. Violent pride, aching wounds, the sharp metallic taste of bloodlust. By midnight, her skull felt like cracked glass. Her hands shook. She was a ghost in her own body, invisible to everyone except when they needed something from her. She slipped into the storage alcove behind the bar, chest heaving, vision blurring. Her eyes landed on a bottle of ember wine tucked behind the cheap ale. The expensive kind. The kind that burned. "Happy birthday to me," she whispered, voice cracking. She didn't bother with a glass. She tipped the bottle back and drank. The fire scorched down her throat, and for the first time in hours, silence. The storm of emotions dulled to a distant hum. The weight lifted. She could finally breathe. She drank again and again. The world tilted pleasantly. The sharp edges softened. The voices quieted. She stumbled out from behind the bar, meaning to collapse in her tiny room upstairs. But something stopped her. A pull. Cold. Heavy. Gravitational. It dragged her attention toward the corner of the tavern. The dead zone. The place where the draft was too cold. Where even drunk warriors refused to sit. Except tonight, someone sat there. A massive figure cloaked in black wolf fur, motionless as a tombstone. The air around him was wrong, thick, suffocating, a pressure that made hardened killers avert their eyes and walk faster. But drunk Morvan didn't feel the fear. The ember wine had stripped her survival instincts bare. Instead, her cursed gift flared open, wider than it ever had before. She looked at the terrifying figure in the shadows, and she didn't see a man. She saw a wolf, not flesh and bone, but spirit. A towering black beast, scarred and shaking, curled into itself like a dying animal. Its massive head was pressed to the ground. Its eyes were shut tight. It was whimpering. It was the loneliest thing Morvan had ever seen. Tears blurred her vision. Her own loneliness, the years of isolation, of hiding, of being invisible, vibrated in her chest like a struck bell. She stumbled forward. The tavern fell silent. Boots stopped moving. Conversations died mid-sentence. Every eye turned to watch the stupid girl walking toward certain death. Morvan didn't notice. She walked right up to the table where the Alpha King sat. He looked up. Beneath the hood, two burning red eyes locked onto hers. A scar carved across his cheek like a claw had tried to split his face in half. A low growl rumbled from his chest, a sound that usually meant someone was about to die. Morvan didn't run. She reached out with one small, trembling hand and placed it directly on his scarred cheek. The moment her skin touched his, the world exploded. A tidal wave of emotion slammed into her. Rage, madness, loneliness so deep it had teeth. A howling storm that had no beginning and no end. A man trapped inside his own mind, begging for quiet. Morvan gasped, tears streaming down her face. "Why are you so sad?" she whispered, voice breaking. The king stopped breathing. The entire tavern stopped breathing. Morvan leaned closer, her ember wine-scented breath brushing his face. Her thumb traced the scar on his cheek, soft and aching. "You're not scary," she murmured, smiling through her tears. "You're just a sad little puppy." She tapped his scarred cheek lightly, affectionately. "Careful, puppy," she whispered. "Growl at me like that again, and you might start wagging your tail." Silence. Absolute, impossible silence. Caden Wolfscar inhaled sharply, like a drowning man breaking the surface. His eyes burned into hers, wide and wild. And then something inside him snapped. Not with violence, but with recognition, with need. His hand shot up and caught her wrist, not roughly, but desperately, like she was the only thing keeping him from falling off the edge of the world. He pulled her closer, his voice a low, shaking rumble against her ear. "Say it again." Morvan blinked, her drunk mind struggling to catch up. The entire tavern held its breath. She thought he wanted another flirt, another tease, so she leaned in, softer this time, almost tender. "Puppy." Caden Wolfscar exhaled like the word was a prayer. And that was the beginning of everything. For him, for her, for the entire northern kingdom. Morvan woke to the sound of wolves howling. Not distant, not outside the walls, inside her head. She jolted upright, immediately regretting it. Her skull felt like it had been split open and stuffed with broken glass. Her mouth tasted like ash and regret. "Oh, gods," she groaned, pressing her palms against her temples. "What did I—" The memories hit her like a fist. The tavern, the ember wine, the king, her hand on his face. "Puppy." "No. No, 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 no." She scrambled out of bed, her thin blanket tangling around her legs. Her tiny attic room was barely large enough for a cot and a cracked wash basin, but right now it felt like a cage. She stumbled to the single grimy window and looked out, and her heart stopped. The entire outpost was surrounded. Black-armored soldiers on horseback formed a perfect ring around Greyfall Outpost. Their cloaks were wolf fur. Their armor was iron and darkness. The Night Guard, the Alpha King's personal executioners. "Oh gods. Oh gods. I'm dead." Morvan's hands shook as she splashed freezing water on her face, trying to think. Maybe she could run. Maybe she could steal a horse. Maybe she could— The door to her room exploded inward. Morvan screamed, stumbling backward. 2 Night Guard soldiers stepped inside, their faces hidden behind wolf-shaped helms. One of them spoke, voice flat and emotionless. "Morvan Venn, you are summoned by the Alpha King. Come willingly or be carried." Her mouth went dry. I didn't mean— It was a mistake. Now." They didn't wait for her answer. One soldier grabbed her arm, not gently, and dragged her toward the door. Morvan's bare feet scraped against the wooden floor as she tried to resist, panic clawing up her throat. "Please, I was drunk. I didn't know who he was." The soldiers didn't respond. They hauled her down the narrow stairs, through the tavern, where every worker and patron stared at her with a mixture of pity and horror, and out into the cold morning air. A black carriage waited outside, flanked by mounted Night Guard. The door hung open like a mouth. "Get in." Morvan's knees buckled. "Please." The soldier shoved her inside. The door slammed shut, and the carriage began to move. Before we continue, please support us and hit the subscribe button and like. It motivates us to create more powerful stories. Now let's back dive in. The silent ride to the palace. Morvan sat frozen on the leather bench, her hands clenched in her lap, her breath coming in short gasps. This was it. She was going to die. She'd insulted the most dangerous man in the North. She'd touched him. She'd called him puppy. "I'm an idiot," she whispered. "I'm a dead idiot." The carriage jolted over uneven ground, and Morven's stomach lurched. She tried to focus on breathing, tried to stop the tears burning behind her eyes. But all she could think about was the moment she'd touched his face, the emotions she'd felt. She'd expected rage, violence, bloodlust, but instead, she'd felt agony, a loneliness so crushing it had almost knocked her unconscious, a mind screaming for silence, a man trapped inside a beast, begging for someone, anyone, to see him. And for one brief, drunken moment, Morvan had seen him. She'd felt him, and he'd felt her too. The carriage stopped. Morvan's heart hammered against her ribs. The door opened. Out! She stumbled into blinding sunlight. When her vision adjusted, she realized where she was. The palace. Blackstone Keep, a fortress carved from volcanic rock, crowned with iron spires and wolf banners. It loomed over the northern kingdom like a predator crouched to strike. And somewhere inside, the Alpha King was waiting. The great hall. They dragged her through corridors of black stone and cold torchlight. Morvan's bare feet slapped against freezing marble. Her thin nightdress was no protection against the icy air. Finally, they reached a massive set of doors carved with snarling wolves. The soldiers pushed them open, and Morvan was shoved inside. The great hall was enormous, vaulted ceilings disappearing into shadow, walls lined with weapons and wolf pelts. At the far end, on a throne of blackened iron, sat him, Caden Wolfscar, the Alpha King. In the daylight, he was even more terrifying. Massive, broad-shouldered. His black hair was wild, his jaw sharp enough to cut stone. The scar across his cheek looked like it had been carved by claws, thick, jagged, brutal. But his eyes, they were locked on her like she was the only thing in the room. Red, burning, hungry. Morven's knees shook. The soldiers released her and stepped back, leaving her alone in the center of the hall. Silence stretched. Caden didn't move, didn't speak. He just stared. Morven swallowed hard, forcing her voice to work. Your Majesty, I apologize for last night. I was drunk. I didn't know. Come here. His voice was a low growl, rough as gravel. Morvan froze. What? Come here. It wasn't a request. Her legs moved before her mind could protest. She walked forward, each step echoing in the vast silence until she stood at the base of the throne. Caden leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes never leaving hers. Up close, she could see the exhaustion etched into his face, the dark circles under his eyes, the tension vibrating through his body like a barely contained storm. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in years. Do you know what you did? He asked quietly. Morvan's throat tightened. I insulted you. I touched you without permission. You made it stop. She blinked. What? Caden's hand shot out and grabbed her wrist, not violently, but firmly. He pulled her closer, until she stood between his knees, until she could feel the heat radiating off him. His eyes searched hers, desperate. The noise, he whispered. The madness. The voices that never stop. You touched me. and for the first time in 10 years. He stopped. His jaw clenched. His grip on her wrist tightened. It went quiet. Morvan's breath caught. She could feel it now, the storm raging inside him. Even without touching his skin, the proximity alone was enough. Her cursed gift flared open, and she felt him. Rage like a wildfire, loneliness like a bottomless pit, and beneath it all, a desperate, aching need. "I don't understand," she whispered. Caden's other hand rose slowly, trembling, and hovered near her face. He didn't touch her. Not yet. "Do it again." Morvan's heart pounded. "Do what?" "Touch me." She stared at him, terrified and confused. But beneath the fear, something else stirred. Curiosity. Compassion. The memory of the wounded wolf she'd seen last night. Slowly, carefully, Morvan raised her hand and pressed her palm against his scarred cheek. The moment their skin connected, Caden shuddered. His eyes fluttered closed. His breath came out in a ragged exhale, and Morvan felt it, the storm inside him calming, the rage softening, the madness retreating like a tide pulling back from shore. He leaned into her touch, like a starving man finally given food. "Gods," he breathed. "How are you doing this?" Morvan didn't know. She'd spent her whole life drowning in other people's emotions. She'd never soothed them before. But somehow, with him, it was different. Her gift didn't just sense his pain, it absorbed it. Caden's eyes opened. And for the first time, they weren't burning with madness. They were clear, human, vulnerable. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Morvan. Morvan Ven." "Morvan." He repeated it like he was memorizing the shape of it. "You will stay here." Her stomach dropped. "What?" "In the palace. You will stay with me." I can't." "You will." His voice hardened, but his hand remained gentle where it still held her wrist. "I am not asking." Panic flared in Morvan's chest. "You can't just keep me here. I am the Alpha King." His eyes burned into hers. "I can do whatever I want." Morvan jerked her hand back, and the moment her touch left his face, Caden flinched. The madness rushed back in. She saw it in his eyes, felt it in the air. The calm shattered. He stood abruptly, towering over her. "Don't," he growled. "Don't take it away." "I'm not. This isn't. Please." The word was raw, desperate. Morvan stared up at him, her mind reeling. This was the Alpha King, the untamed king of the North, the man who'd ripped apart armies with his bare hands, and he was begging. Before she could respond, Caden reached out and cupped her face with both hands, gentle, reverent, terrified she'd vanish. "Stay," he whispered. "Just stay." Morvan's breath hitched. She should run. She should fight. She should scream, but all she could feel was the hurricane of pain inside him, and the terrifying realization that she was the only thing keeping him from drowning. "Okay," she whispered. Caden exhaled, relief flooding his expression, and Morvan Ven realized with sinking certainty. She wasn't a guest. She was a lifeline, and he would never let her go. Morvan was given a room, not a cell, not a servant's quarters, a suite, silk curtains, A bed large enough for 4 people, a balcony overlooking snow-capped mountains. It was more luxury than she'd seen in her entire life. It was also a cage. 2 night guards stood outside her door at all times. When she tried to leave, they stepped in front of her. "The king requests you remain in your chambers until he summons you." "So I'm a prisoner?" The guard's expression didn't change. "You are a guest." Morven slammed the door in his face. She paced the room like a trapped animal, her mind racing. This was insane. She was nobody. A tavern girl with a curse she didn't understand. And now the most dangerous man in the kingdom refused to let her leave because her touch made him feel better. A knock interrupted her spiraling thoughts. The door opened before she could respond. Kaiden stepped inside. Morvan's breath caught. He'd changed from his throne room armor into simpler clothes, a black tunic, leather pants. But he was no less intimidating. He filled the doorway like a storm. "We need to talk," he said. "You think?" Morvan crossed her arms. "You can't just kidnap people because they make you feel good." "I didn't kidnap you. I offered you protection." "You didn't offer anything. You commanded." Kaiden's jaw tightened. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. "Do you know what the Alpha Curse is?" Morvan blinked at the sudden shift. "I've heard stories." "Then you know it drives us mad." He moved closer, and Morvan fought the urge to step back. "Every Alpha King inherits it. The power to transform, to lead, to conquer. But the curse comes with it. Voices, rage, madness that grows worse every year." His hand rose to the scar on his cheek. "Most kings last 10 years before they lose themselves completely. I've lasted 12, barely." Morvan's anger faltered. "I don't understand what that has to do with me." "You silence it." His eyes locked on hers, intense. "When you touch me, the voices stop. The rage dulls. I can think again." "That's not possible. I don't have magic." "Then what are you?" Morvan's mouth opened, then closed. She didn't know. She'd never known. Kaiden took another step closer. They were inches apart now. "I have searched for years for something, anything that could quiet the madness. Healers, witches, potions, prayers. Nothing worked." His voice dropped to a rough whisper. "And then a drunk girl in a tavern touched my face and called me puppy." Despite everything, Morvan's cheeks flushed. That was, "Don't apologize." His hand rose slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he cupped her cheek, exactly as she'd done to him. The moment his skin touched hers, Morvan felt it, the storm inside him calming, the madness retreating, and something else, something warm and desperate and aching. "Please," Kaiden whispered. "I know I have no right to ask, but I am begging you, stay, help me. I will give you anything you want. Money, land, protection. I want to go home." Pain flashed across his face. His hand dropped. "I can't let you do that." "Why not?" "Because without you—" He stopped, his jaw working. "Without you, I'll lose control. I'll hurt people. I'll become the monster they already think I am." Morvan stared at him, her heart twisting. This was the Alpha King. Feared. Powerful. Untouchable. And he was terrified. She thought about the wounded wolf she'd seen in the tavern, the loneliness crushing him from the inside. Slowly, she reached up and placed her hand on his scarred cheek. Caden's eyes closed. His shoulders sagged. 1 week, Morvan said quietly. I'll stay 1 week, and you'll figure out another way to deal with your curse. Caden opened his eyes, and something flickered there. Hope, fragile and desperate. 1 week, he agreed. But they both knew it was a lie, because the moment she tried to leave, the madness would return, and this time, it might consume them both. 3 days passed in a strange, suffocating routine. Caden summoned her every few hours. She would sit with him while he handled court business, her hand in his, her presence quieting the storm. He never demanded more than her touch, never forced her closer than she allowed, but his eyes followed her constantly, like she was air, and he was drowning. The palace whispered. She tames him. She controls the beast. What kind of witch is she? Morvan heard the servants gossiping, saw the nobles watching her with suspicion and fear. She was an outsider wearing borrowed silk, sitting beside a king who couldn't let her go. And then came the invitation. You're taking me to a ball? Morvan stared at the dress laid out on her bed. Midnight blue silk with silver embroidery, far too beautiful for someone like her. Caden stood in her doorway, arms crossed. The Frost Moon Ball, it's tradition. I'm required to attend. So leave me here. No. Morvan spun to face him. I don't belong at a royal ball. I'm a tavern girl. They'll eat me alive. They won't touch you. His voice was granite. Not while you're under my protection. Why do you need me there? His jaw tightened. Because if you're not with me. He stopped, frustration flickering across his face. I can barely make it through an hour without your presence, before the madness returns. A ball lasts all night. Morvan's chest tightened. She wanted to argue, wanted to refuse. But she saw the truth in his eyes. He needed her. Fine, she whispered. But I'm not dancing. Caden's mouth curved, almost a smile. We'll see. The Wolves' Court. The ballroom was a cathedral of ice and darkness. Chandeliers dripped with crystals, nobles dressed in furs and jewels moved like predators in a beautiful, deadly dance, and every single eye turned when Morvan entered on Caden's arm. The whispers started immediately. That's her? The nobody who tamed him? She's using dark magic. She must be. Morvan's fingers tightened on Caden's arm. He glanced down at her, his expression softening slightly. Breathe, he murmured. You're safe. But she wasn't. She could feel it, the hostility rolling off the nobles in waves. Her gift screamed at her to run. A woman approached, gliding through the crowd like a viper in silk. She was beautiful. Sharp cheekbones, dark hair, cruel eyes. Lady Mirael, Caden's chief advisor. Your Majesty. Mirael curtsied elegantly, her gaze sliding to Morvan with thinly veiled contempt. And this must be your companion. Morvan Ven, Caden said flatly. Treat her with respect. Mirael's smile was poison. Of course. How charming that you found someone to keep you company. The insult was barely hidden. Morvan felt Caden's arm tense beneath her hand. Before the situation could escalate, music swelled through the hall. Caden turned to Morvan. Dance with me. I told you. I'm asking, not commanding. His red eyes held hers. Please. Morvan's resolve crumbled. She nodded. He led her onto the floor, one hand settling on her waist, the other clasping hers. The moment they touched, she felt it, the madness quieting, his breathing evening out. They moved together, and despite her protests, Morvan found herself relaxing. Caden was surprisingly graceful for someone so large. "You're good at this," she murmured. "Kings are trained in useless skills." His thumb brushed her waist, gentle. "But this doesn't feel useless." Morvan looked up at him, and something shifted. For the first time, she didn't see the Alpha King. She saw Caden, just Caden, lonely, burdened, trying so hard not to break. Without thinking, she leaned closer and whispered, "It's okay, puppy. I've got you." Caden's breath hitched. His eyes darkened, not with madness, but with something else entirely. Around them, the nobles gasped. Mirael watched from the shadows, her expression calculating. And when the servants brought the royal toast, she smiled. Her hand moved swiftly, unseen, dropping silver powder into Caden's goblet. Moonrot, the poison that would shatter everything. The toast was called. Crystal goblets were raised throughout the ballroom, catching the light like frozen stars. Caden reached for his drink, and Morvan felt a strange prickle of unease crawl up her spine. Something was wrong. But before she could place it, Caden had already lifted the goblet to his lips. "To the Alpha King," Mirael's voice rang out, smooth as silk. "May his reign be enduring." Caden drank. For a moment, nothing happened. Then his hand trembled. The goblet slipped from his fingers and shattered on the marble floor. "Caden!" Morvan touched his arm, and ice shot through her veins. His emotions, they were twisting, warping. The calm she'd given him was shredding apart like paper in a storm. Caden staggered back, his breathing ragged. His eyes flickered, red to black to red again. "Caden, what's wrong?" He looked at her, and there was no recognition in his eyes, only terror and rage. "You," he snarled, his voice distorting into something inhuman. "You did this." Morvan's blood turned to ice. "No, I didn't." His claws burst through his fingertips. The guests screamed and scattered. Nightguard rushed forward, but Caden's roar stopped them cold. "Stay back!" His body convulsed, muscles bulging beneath his skin. "Get away from me!" But he was staring at Morvan. She could feel it now, the poison working through his mind like acid. Moonrot. She'd heard stories. It didn't just cause hallucinations. It turned your greatest comfort into your greatest fear. "Caden, it's me. It's Morvan." She stepped closer, hands raised. "Let me help you." "Liar!" He lunged. Morvan barely had time to gasp before he had her by the throat, lifting her off the ground, his claws pressed against her skin, not quite breaking it, but close, so close. "You poisoned me," he growled, his face inches from hers. "You were sent to destroy me, all of it, the touch, the comfort. It was a lie." "No," Morvan choked out, tears streaming down her face. "Caden, please!" She pressed her hand against his face, desperate to reach him. For one heartbreaking second, clarity flickered in his eyes. "Morvan," he whispered, confused, terrified. "I can't. I don't." Then the moonrot surged again. His grip tightened. Morvan saw her death in his eyes. "Restrain the king," a Nightguard captain shouted. 6 soldiers rushed forward with chains forged to hold transformed alphas. They tackled Caden from behind, dragging him away from Morvan. She collapsed to the floor, gasping, her throat bruised. Caden fought like a demon, roaring and thrashing. It took 8 men to hold him down. Black veins crawled up his neck. Foam flecked his lips. "No, don't hurt him." Morvan tried to crawl toward him. A hand caught her arm. Miriel, her expression perfectly crafted into concern. "My dear, you're not safe near him. Can't you see? The king has finally succumbed to the madness." "He was poisoned," Morvan spat. Miriel's eyes glittered. "Was he? Or has your presence simply accelerated his decline?" The accusation hung in the air. Around them, nobles whispered, pointed. "She did this. The outsider. The witch. I didn't—" "Morvan." Caden's voice ripped through the chaos. Even restrained, even poisoned, his eyes found hers. "Run, please. I can't. I don't know how long." His body convulsed again. His eyes bled to full black, and the last thread of his control snapped. "Remove her from the palace." Caden's voice was barely human now. "Banish her. Send her away before I—" He couldn't finish. Another roar tore from his throat. "You heard the king's command," Miriel said smoothly. "Take her away." "For her own protection." "No, wait." Morvan struggled as guards grabbed her arms. "Caden, I can help you. I can fix this." But he wasn't looking at her anymore. His eyes were wild, unfocused, lost. The guards dragged her backward toward the ballroom doors. "Caden!" Morvan screamed his name, her voice breaking. "Please, don't do this." But he was already gone, lost in the poison, lost in the madness. And the only person who could save him was being thrown out of the palace. The last thing Morvan saw before the doors slammed shut was Caden collapsing to his knees, chains wrapped around his body, his mouth open in a silent howl of agony. Then she was pulled into the cold night air. A horse was brought, her few belongings thrown into a bag. "Go," the guard captain said, not unkindly. "Before he breaks free, if he finds you again in this state, he'll kill you." "He needs me. He banished you. Don't make this harder." Morvan looked back at the palace, at the place where the broken king was losing himself completely. And she realized the horrible truth. Without her, Caden would fall. But if she stayed, he would destroy her. So she turned her horse toward the mountains and fled into the darkness. Alone. Morvan rode until her horse collapsed from exhaustion. Then she walked. The northern mountains were merciless, jagged peaks, biting wind, snow that cut like glass. She had no food, no proper clothing. Just the ball gown she'd worn and a cloak someone had thrown at her. She should have died that first night. But something kept her moving, the memory of Caden's face. The way he'd looked at her before the poison took him. "I can't lose control. Please, run." He'd banished her to save her, and now he was suffering alone. On the third day, Morvan stumbled into a hidden valley. Smoke rose from a cluster of stone cottages built into the mountainside. She collapsed at the entrance, her vision blurring. When she woke, she was inside. Warm, wrapped in furs. An old woman sat beside her, stirring a pot over the fire. Her eyes were milky white, blind, but somehow seeing everything. "You're awake," the woman said. "Good. I was beginning to think you'd chosen death." Morvan's throat was raw. "Where am I?" "The refuge, where the forgotten come to hide." The woman ladled soup into a bowl. "Drink. You'll need your strength." Morvan obeyed, too weak to argue. The soup burned going down, but it was the best thing she'd ever tasted. "You touched him, didn't you?" the old woman asked suddenly. Morvan froze. "What?" "The Alpha King. You touched him, and the madness quieted." The woman's blind eyes seemed to stare straight through her. "You're a mind weaver," The word hung in the air like a curse. I don't know what that means. Yes, you do. You've always known something was different. The woman set down her ladle. You feel emotions. Other people's pain becomes yours. And when you touch someone suffering, you can soothe them. Morven's hands trembled. How do you know? Because I'm one too. Or I was, before they burned out my eyes trying to break me. Horror flooded Morven's chest. The woman smiled grimly. Mind-weavers are rare, dangerous. We can calm wolf spirits, ease madness, stop wars with a touch. Kings have hunted us for centuries. Some to use us, some to destroy us. My father was likely a mind-weaver. And your mother probably died protecting you from those who would have enslaved you. Morven's eyes burned. She'd always wondered why her parents disappeared, why she'd been left alone. Now she knew. Lady Mirael, Morven whispered. She poisoned Caden. She wanted me gone. Of course she did. You're the only thing standing between her and the throne. The old woman stood. But you ran. You left him. He banished me to protect you. And now he's dying. The woman's voice was sharp. The moon rot won't just make him mad. It'll consume him. Without you, he'll transform completely. Lose his humanity. Become a true beast. Morvan stood, legs shaking. Then I have to go back. Not yet. You're untrained. Weak. You'll die before you reach him. The woman grabbed Morven's wrist. But I can teach you. Strengthen your gift. Show you how to fight back against those who would use you. How long will that take? 2 weeks. Maybe 3. He doesn't have 3 weeks. Then you'd better learn fast. The training. The days blurred together. The old woman, her name was Senna, taught Morvan to control her gift, to build walls against emotional storms, to project calm instead of just absorbing pain. Your power isn't just passive, Senna explained. You can weave emotions, reshape them. A skilled mind-weaver can turn rage into peace, fear into courage. Morvan practiced on the other refugees, broken soldiers, traumatized survivors. She learned to touch their minds gently, to soothe without being consumed, and every night she dreamed of Caden, his red eyes, his desperate whisper, "Stay." On the 14th day, a refugee stumbled into the valley, half dead. "The kingdom," he gasped. "It's falling apart. The king, he's locked himself in the throne room, won't eat, won't sleep, just roars. They say he's transforming, that soon there won't be anything left." Morvan's heart shattered. "And Lady Mirael?" she asked quietly. "Declared herself regent. Says the king must be put down for the safety of the realm." Execution. They were going to kill him. Morvan turned to Senna. "I have to go. Now." The old woman nodded. "Then go. Save your king. He's not. He's yours. And you're his. Now stop wasting time." Morvan gathered her cloak, her resolve hardening into steel. She was done running. Morvan returned to a kingdom on the brink of collapse. The outposts were abandoned, villages burned. Refugees fled south in desperate caravans, their faces hollow with fear. "The king has gone feral," they whispered. "He killed 6 guards who tried to feed him. He howls every night. The beast has finally won." Morvan's chest ached with every story. She moved through the chaos like a ghost, gathering information, and what she learned made her blood run cold. Lady Mirael had convinced the northern clans that Caden was too dangerous to live. A public execution was scheduled in 3 days, framed as mercy, as saving the kingdom from a mad tyrant. But Morven saw the truth. Mirael wanted the crown, and she'd used Morven to get it. She knew what I was. She poisoned him the moment she realized I could save him. Rage burned through Morven's grief. She wouldn't let Mirael win. Gathering the outcasts, Morvan found them in the ruins of an old watchtower, a group of soldiers who'd refused to turn on their king. Their captain was a scarred woman named Renna, who'd served Cardin since he was a boy. "He saved my life during the clan wars," Renna said, her voice rough. "I won't let them butcher him like an animal." "Then help me stop them," Morvan said. Renna studied her. "You're the girl, the one who tamed him." "I didn't tame him, I just helped him breathe." "Can you do it again?" Morven's jaw set. "I have to." They planned through the night. Renna had 12 loyal soldiers, not enough to storm the palace, but enough to cause a distraction. "Mirael has him chained in the execution courtyard," Renna explained, pointing to a rough map. "She wants the whole kingdom to watch, proof that she's the savior who ended the Mad King's reign." "How close can you get me?" "Close enough. But once you're inside..." Renna's expression darkened. "He won't recognize you. The Moonrots had weeks to work. He's more beast than man now. I know. He might kill you. I know that too." Renna gripped Morven's shoulder. "You're braver than most soldiers I've known." Morven wasn't brave. She was terrified. But she'd rather die trying than live, knowing she'd abandoned him. The night before execution, they moved under cover of darkness. Morvan wore stolen guard armor, her face hidden beneath a helm. Renna's soldiers created chaos at the northern gate, fires, shouting, enough distraction to pull Mirael's forces away from the palace. Morvan slipped through a servant's entrance, her heart hammering. The palace felt wrong, empty, haunted. She could feel him. Even from a distance, Caden's emotions were a hurricane, rage, pain, loneliness so vast it threatened to swallow her whole. She followed the pull like a compass. The execution courtyard was an amphitheater carved from black stone. Torches ringed the space. And in the center, chained to a platform with iron blessed by dark magic. Caden. Morvan's breath caught. He was barely recognizable. His body was half transformed, claws fully extended, black veins crawling across his skin, eyes pure feral black. His hair was wild. His clothes were torn. Blood stained the platform beneath him. He looked like something out of a nightmare. But Morven saw past the monster. She saw the broken wolf, curled up in agony. Guards surrounded him, spears pointed inward. Mirael stood on a raised dais, rehearsing her speech for tomorrow's execution. "And so we must do what is necessary, painful though it may be. The king we loved is gone. Only the beast remains." Caden's head snapped up. Even from across the courtyard, even through the moon-wrought haze, he sensed her. A low, keening howl tore from his throat. Mirael stopped mid-sentence. "What?" "Morvan." Caden's voice was shredded, barely human. "Morvan." The chains rattled, his body convulsed. Morvan stepped out of the shadows, removing her helmet. Every guard turned, Mirael's face twisted with fury. "Seize her!" But Morvan was already running, straight toward the monster in chains. "Caden!" she screamed. "I'm here! I'm here!" He lunged against his restraints, snapping one chain, then another. Guards rushed forward. Renna's soldiers burst into the courtyard behind Morvan, engaging Mirael's forces. Chaos erupted, and through it all, Morvan ran. Toward the man who might kill her. Toward the king who needed her. Toward the only person who'd ever truly seen her. His eyes locked on hers, and she saw nothing but hunger. Caden's final chain shattered. He dropped to all fours, his body completing the transformation. A massive wolf, black as midnight, eyes like burning coals. He was magnificent and utterly feral. The guards scattered. Even Renna's soldiers stepped back. "Morvan, don't!" Renna shouted. But Morvan kept walking. The wolf's gaze locked on her, and she felt the collision of his fractured mind. Rage, hunger, pain so deep it had teeth. The moon rot had stripped away everything human. He didn't know her. He only knew prey. Caden lunged. In the space of a heartbeat, he closed the distance. Claws extended, jaws open. A killing strike. Morvan didn't run. She dropped to her knees, held out her hands, and whispered the word that started everything. "Down, puppy." The wolf's claws stopped inches from her throat. His entire body trembled, suspended between killing and recognition. Morvan slowly raised her hand and pressed her palm against his massive muzzle, right where the scar would be in his human form. The moment their skin touched, everything exploded. She didn't just feel his emotions this time. She entered his mind. Inside the madness, Morvan stood in a wasteland of black thorns and red lightning. This was Caden's consciousness, a battlefield where the man and the beast fought for control. And the beast was winning. She saw him, the real Caden, barely visible beneath layers of corruption. He was on his knees, drowning in shadow, his eyes hollow with despair. "Caden!" Morvan ran toward him. He looked up, but didn't recognize her. "You're not real. Nothing is real. It's all poison. I'm real." She fell to her knees beside him. "I'm here. I came back." "I told you to run." His voice cracked. "I told you to leave me. I don't listen very well." Despite everything, he almost smiled. Then the shadows surged, wrapping around him like chains. His scream tore through her. Morvan grabbed his face with both hands. "Listen to me. You are not the madness. You are not the curse. You are Caden Wolfscar, and you are mine. I tried to kill you. You saved me. You sent me away because you couldn't bear to hurt me." Tears streamed down her face. "That's not madness. That's love." Caden's eyes widened. "I don't know what this thing between us is," Morvan continued. "I don't know if it's fate or chance or desperation. But I know that when I touch you, I don't feel like I'm drowning anymore. I feel like I can finally breathe." Her mind-weaver gift flared, not to soothe, but to weave. She gathered his scattered pieces, his broken memories, his buried humanity, and she stitched them back together. "Come back to me, puppy," she whispered. "Please." The shadows screamed and shattered. The transformation. Back in the courtyard, the massive wolf collapsed, his body convulsed, shrinking, bones cracking and reforming. The black fur receded, and Caden, human Caden, fell forward into Morvan's arms. She caught him, cradling his head against her chest. His skin was burning hot, his breathing ragged. But his eyes were clear, red, burning. His "Morvan." His voice was hoarse, confused. "How? Shh, I've got you." His arms wrapped around her waist, holding her like she was the only solid thing in the universe. "I thought I'd lost you," he whispered into her hair. "I thought I'd killed you. You couldn't. You sent me away instead." She pulled back just enough to see his face. "Even poisoned, even lost. You protected me." Caden's hand rose to cup her cheek, trembling. "I need you. Gods help me. I need you. I know. I need you too. His forehead pressed against hers. I don't deserve. Stop. Morven's voice was firm. We're done with that. We save each other. That's how this works. Around them, the battle had stopped. Renna's soldiers had Mirael surrounded. Execute her, Caden growled without looking away from Morvan. She poisoned her king. The penalty is death. Mirael screamed as she was dragged away, but Caden didn't care. He was too busy memorizing the face of the woman who'd walked into hell to bring him home. Say it again, he whispered. Morven smiled through her tears. Puppy. Caden exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years, and kissed her. The kingdom didn't heal overnight, but it began. Lady Mirael was executed at dawn, not by Caden's hand, but by the clans she'd tried to manipulate. They'd learned the truth about the moonrot, about her ambitions. The Northern Lords didn't tolerate traitors. Caden reclaimed his throne, but he was different now, calmer, grounded, still dangerous when provoked, but no longer teetering on the edge of madness, because Morvan stayed. 3 months later, Morven stood on the balcony of the royal chambers, watching snow fall over the mountains. She wore a gown of deep crimson, the color of the queen consort, though no official ceremony had happened yet. She wasn't sure one ever would. She and Caden existed in a space beyond titles, beyond politics. They simply were. Arms wrapped around her waist from behind. Caden's chin rested on her shoulder, his breath warm against her neck. You're thinking too loud, he murmured. Morvan smiled. How can you tell? Because I can feel you. His hold tightened slightly. Always. It was true. The bond between them had deepened. She didn't just soothe his madness anymore. She could sense his moods, his needs, his heart. And he could feel hers. It should have been terrifying. Instead, it felt like coming home. The northern clans sent another petition, Caden said. They want you officially crowned. I'm a tavern girl who called you puppy. You're a mind weaver who saved my life, who saved the kingdom. He turned her to face him. You're already a queen in everything but name. Morven traced the scar on his cheek, the one that had started everything. What if I'm not ready? Then we'll figure it out together. His eyes softened. I'm not asking you to be perfect, Morvan. I'm asking you to stay. I'm not going anywhere. Promise? She stood on her toes and kissed him softly. Promise, puppy. Caden's low growl was half warning, half laughter. You're going to use that against me forever, aren't you? Absolutely. He kissed her again, deeper this time. Not desperate like those first weeks, but certain, devoted. When they finally pulled apart, Morvan rested her forehead against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. I never thanked you, she whispered. For what? For seeing me, really seeing me. She looked up at him. I spent my whole life drowning in other people's emotions, feeling like I was too much, too broken, too strange, but you... Her voice caught. You never made me feel like my gift was a curse. Caden's hand cupped her face gently. Because it's not. You saved me, Morven. Not just from the madness, from loneliness, from becoming the monster everyone feared. His thumb traced her cheekbone. You gave me quiet. You gave me peace. You gave me a place to belong. Then we're even. Morvan laughed, the sound bright and free. The coronation, The ceremony happened on the first day of spring. The great hall was packed with northern lords, clan leaders, and common folk who'd travelled for days to witness history. The girl who'd tamed the Alpha King. Morvan wore a gown of silver and white, her hair woven with winter flowers. She looked ethereal. Untouchable, but when Caden placed the crown on her head, a circlet of iron and moonstone, his hands trembled slightly. "You're sure?" he whispered, so only she could hear. Morvan met his burning gaze and smiled. "I'm sure." The hall erupted in cheers, but all Morvan heard was Caden's exhale of relief. That night they escaped the celebrations early, retreating to the royal chambers. Caden poured wine with shaking hands, nervous in a way he hadn't been even during battle. "You're my queen now," he said quietly. "Officially. Does that change anything?" "No. Yes." He set down the goblet. "Everything." He crossed to her, dropping to one knee. Morvan's breath caught. "I'm not good with words," Caden said, looking up at her. "I'm better with violence than poetry. But you," his voice roughened, "you took a broken, mad king and made him want to be better, made him believe he could be." He took her hands in his. "I will burn kingdoms for you. I will tear apart anyone who threatens you. I will spend every day of my life making sure you never regret choosing me." Tears spilled down Morvan's cheeks. "Caden." "Say it again," he whispered. "Please." She knelt with him, cupping his scarred face in both hands. "Down, puppy," she murmured. "You're mine, and I'm yours, forever." Caden kissed her like she was air and he was drowning. And in that moment, the merchant's daughter and the mad king became, simply, two broken people who'd found each other in the darkness and chosen to stay. Epilogue. The stories would call it legend. The flirt who tamed the beast. The king who knelt for one girl. The word puppy that changed the fate of the North. But Morvan and Caden knew the truth. She hadn't tamed him. She'd just loved him enough to help him tame himself. And that made all the difference. If you enjoyed this story of moonlit love and second chances, let me know in the comments. Your voice decides what tale I tell next. Don't forget to subscribe for more romance that defies kingdoms.